Is Robert. Ozzimo and I proudly represent the company of Harcourts, Rata and Co, the best team in the north. I'm joined here today by my colleagues. Should you require their advice, please feel free to approach either Sebastian, Maria, Mary, Cheryl, Daniel, and of course Ilia and Menkinoski, who no doubt you've had the great pleasure of meeting throughout the marketing campaign. Buyers, let me share with you now the following announcements which are in place to help you bid and buy with absolute confidence here today. The auction will be conducted in accordance with the rules, and any additional conditions that are available for inspection before the start of the auction. The auction rules prohibit an auctioneer from accepting bids or offers for a property after the property has been knocked down to the successful bidder. The vendors have a reserve price as the auctioneer. I'll indicate bidders on request. The law prohibits false bids, prohibits major disruptions by bidders, and prohibits bidders attempting to prevent others from bidding, and provides for fines for such conduct. The rules permit for vendor bids. The words I'll use during the auction to indicate that I'm making a bid on behalf of the vendor are vendor bid, and by law only I, as the auctioneer, can make a vendor bid. The contract of sale has been on display prior to today's auction. We call for a 10% deposit upon the fall of the hammer and the signing of that contract to take place here today, with the balance to be paid at settlement in 30 to 60 days time, at which time the vendor will provide the lucky buyer with vacant possession of the property. All in all, quite a straightforward document. Everything's in there, everything is quite clear. So buyers, is with my highest recommendation what we offer for your consideration and competition here today: the ideal family home in the ideal family location. Not only are you securing your future through capital growth here today, but you're providing an awesome lifestyle for you and your family. Walking distance to transport as close as a short stroll, a few doors up to catch the bus. Easy access, of course, to plenty of shopping options, not the least of which is Westfield, Plenty Valley, and of course the Stables Shopping Centre. A plethora of parkland in the surrounding streets, and great options when it comes to schooling, both primary and secondary, public and private, all within easy reach. Add to that a home that feels like home from the moment you walk through the door, a free-flowing floor plan, that beautiful lounge with that Canara fireplace, and of course spilling out into that picturesque backyard out through their undercover outdoor alfresco, perfect for relaxing or entertaining in. It is a perfect home for you and your family to get the sold sticker up on the board. Buyers, if you would like to reserve that right, now is your time to do just that. Where can I see a fair and reasonable starting bid for 108 Prince of Wales? Who'd like to start us off? I don't mind the call. I'm in your hands, buyers. Start me where you like. This is your moment, your time. I've had my say time for you to have yours now. We have a very reasonable reserve price in a bid to get the job done here today. Our instructions are clear, that to get the sold sticker up on the board. So it's an opportunity for you to take advantage of. This is your moment, an opportunity to start from a position of strength. If you're here to buy, now's the time. Perhaps a few shy bidders among us here today. It does take a brave soul to raise their hand first at an auction.
680.
Oh, can I just see what that one was?
680.
Oh, I had it here first at 680,000. At 680,000, fairly been offered. We're over here, make it 7 if you like. At 680,000, fairly been off 700,000 now, even money now. At 700 the bid. At 700,000, bid there against your bid at 7 now. At 700 the bid. At 700,000, fairly been offered. Welcome to you both. At 700,000. At 700,000, the bid. See how once at 700,000. At 750, a great bid. Oh, 50. Bit excited for me at 715. I heard 75 and I added the zero at 715. At 35 now. I wanted to make sure I got that one right at 35. Got to be 50 now at 735. At 735 for 40, why not? At 740, the same courtesy of 5 if you like, so but make it 50 if you like. At 45 now, at 745. At 750 now, and we got there in the end at 750,000. Welcome and best of luck at 50. At $750,000 a bid. At 55 now, 755. At 755,000, fairly been offered now at 755 in the bids here. At 755. At 755,000. At 60 now, welcome back at 60, at 760, at 65 and 70 surely. At 765,000, bid here, my left, your right, opportunity with you. At 65, the bid's there. At 765. At 70 now, $770,000 the bid. At 770, at 75. At 775,000. At 775. $875,000. If you come to buy, show me now, because we are on the market and selling. The bid's there, the keys are there. We sell here today, so it's $775,000. If there's no further bid, keys will remain there. We are on the market, we sell. If you've come to buy, bid me now at 80 now. At $780,085. At 785 the bid. At $785,000. You had the keys for a moment, but they're back there now at 90 got. At $790,000 now. 800, sir, surely. At $790,000, bid there, keys are there, we sell at $790 now. Once at $790,000, all done. Second call at $791. Welcome and best of luck at 91. At $791,000, you had those keys at 92 now at $792. At $792,000. At $793 now at $793. At $793,000 the bid, and the bid's there. Keys are there. Opportunity back with you at 93 the bid. At $793,000. At $793 the bid. Once at $709. At 94. At $794. At 5, at $795 now, at $795. At $795 and the bid's back here, keys back here at $795 and 96 got. At $709, how about say 800, sir? At 98, $798 and 800 beckons surely now. At $798,000, the bid's there. At 99, nowhere left to hide now. Got to be 800,000 even money. Don't let it scare you off. It's just a round number. It's only one more than 99. At 790, at 800,000, the bid's there. At 800, the bid. At 800,000, fairly been offered at 8. We're on the market. We sell. Bids here. Keys are here. $800,000 the bid. Once at 800,000. At 801 here, at 801, welcome back, 02 now, at 802 the bid, at 802,000, bid back here, at 803 now, at 803 and 4, at 804 now, at 4 on the 8, at 804 at 5 now, got at 805,000 and 6, at 806,000, at 806,000, how about 10? Give me a big bid. Big bids buy property. Best response to a small one is always a big one. 806,000, the bid's there, the keys are there. We're on the market, we sell. 806 the bid. Once at 806,000, done.
7.
At 7 now, at 807 and 8. At 808, $808,000 the bid. 808 the bid. At 808,000, bid there, sir. We done over here. At 808,000, we're on the market, we're selling. At 15, at 815,000, fight fire with fire, sir. Give me a big bid in response. At 815 and the bid's behind. At 815,000, at 500, 815 and a half. At 815,500, easy bid to beat, sir. 815 and a half, take me to 20. At 815,500, bid there, keys are there, don't walk away for half. At 815, at 500, 816 now, got him down to $1,500 bids, course for optimism, push on at 816, are we done here? At 816,000, still thinking about it. At 816,000, fairly been offered and the bid's back there, are we done over here? 816, definitely done. Thank you very much for your bidding here today. 816,000, bids there, keys are there, we sell. Once at 816, all done.
500.
At 500, 816 and a half. At 816,500 now, 816 and a half, and the bid's over there at 816 and a half. At 816,500, fairly been offered now. Once at 816 and a half, done. At 817 and a half. At 817,500, round me off to 20. At 817,500, bids there. At 817 and a half. At 817,500, it was a late run, make it count. At 817 and a half, fairly been offered now, we're done here. Are we definitely done over here? 817 and a half, opportunity still there. I haven't sold it yet, but I'm about to. At 817,500, bid there, keys there, we sell. Once, 817 and a half, all done. 18 now, and welcome back at 18. At 818, at $818,000 the bid now at 818. At 818 the bid. How about 20, sir? 818,000 bids there, keys are there. Have they done enough? At $818,000 the bid. First call at 818, all done. At 19 now, at 819, 20 surely, at 819,000, bid back there now, at 500 now, at 819 and a half, at 819,500, got to be at least 20 in the rise now, at 819,500, bid there, keys there, we sell, 819 and a half, at 20 now, at $820,000 a bid, and we got there in the end. Still thinking about it? 820,000. Bid there. Now's the time to get back involved if you want to buy. We are on the market. We sell. If you've come to buy, bid me now. If ever hold your peace, we sell away here today. 820,000. The bid's there. The keys are there. They'll remain there if we get no further bidding here today. At $820,000 the bid. Once at 820,000. Are we all done? Second call, 820 and at 821. At $821,000 now at 821. At 821,000, fairly been offered now, and bid back there now at 821. At 821,000. At 821,000 might take a big bid, sir, to get the job done here today. At 821, the bid's there, the keys are there. If you tell me you're out, I'll sell over there. At 821,000, first call at 821, all done. And a half at 821 and a half. At 821,500 now. At 821,500, try a big bid, sir. Small bids haven't worked for you so far. At 821,500, we're definitely done. Thank you very much for your spirited bidding here today. 821,500, we're definitely done there. Last chance, we're done. You're done? Thank you very much for your bidding here today. 821,500, bid there. Keys are there at 500, 822. At $822,000 now at 822. At 822 in the bid's there at 822,000. Fairly been offered now at 822 the bid. At 822,000 and a half now at 822 and a half. At 822 and a half fairly been offered. At 822,500. Yeah, this time. 822 and a half. Take me to 25. One last roll of the dice, but make it a big bid. You want to finish on a big bid to know you gave it your best. At 822,500, you typically spend more with small bids. They accumulate at I'm not taking 250, so I'm not that cheap. I don't look that cheap to you, do I? At 822 and a half, no, it's got to be at least 23. I won't take it. 822 and a half. At 822, not in this economy, sir. At 822,500, the bid's there. If you want to get back involved, give me 23 on top. At 822,500, the bid. Once at 822 and a half, all done. Twice at 822 and a half, done. Finished. Third, final call. 820 at 23 now, and welcome back at 23. At 823,000. At 823,000, fairly been offered. Bid back there now at 823. At 823,000, fairly been offered. At 823, bid there, keys there. We sell. Once at 823, all done. Twice. 823 and 23 and a half. At 823,500, small bids keep him coming along at 25, and that's a better bid. At 825. At 825 now the bid. At 825,000, the bid's back behind, back over there, keys are there. Tell me you're right now, so I will sell. At 825 the bid, 8 1/4 once. At 825,000 done. 8 1/4 for the second call at 825. Done at 500 now at 825 and a half. At 825,500 was that the last roll of the dice. We absolutely done now. Thank you very much for your spirited bidding here today once more. At 825,500 bid here, keys are here. We sell now. Once at 825 and a half, all done. Twice at 825 and a half, done and finished. Third, final call, 825,600 at 28, at 8,600, at 826, at 826. That's a big step backwards. At 826 now, at 826,000, at 826,000. The bid's here now at 826. At 826,000, fairly been offered now. 826,000. What do you say, sir? Might be the last chance here today. How about you take me to 30 at 826? We're on the market. We sell. Once at 826, all done. Twice, 826 and a half at 826,500. How about 827? Lucky number at 826 and a half, and the bid's there now at 826,500. The bid at 826,500. Fairly been offered now at 826,500. The bid we sell now at 826 and a half. First call 826,500. All done. Twice at 826 and a half. Done. Finished. It's 827 now at 827,000. At 827,000 now. At 827, and the bid's back there now at 827,000. What do you say, sir? Got to be decisive if you want to buy. Got to dig deep if you want to buy. Now's the time. No time like the present, sir. At 827, the bid's there. The keys are there. We sell. 827, the bid. Getting the calculator out, 827 plus 3 is 30, sir. At 827,000, take me to 30. At 827,000, bid there, keys there, we sell. Once at 827, done. Twice
500.
at 500, 827 and a half. At 827,500, getting my steps in here today. I won't take 250, so at 827 and a half. At 827,500, the bid's there. 28 I will take. At 827 and a half, and the bid's there. At 827,500, need to know. At 28 now. At 828. At 828, the bid. At 828,000, fairly been offered now. At 828,000, and the bid's there. At 828. At 828,000, need to know now, sir. At 828,000, as I said, if you want to buy, you got to dig deep. You got to be decisive. 828, the bid. Once at 828, all done. Twice, 828,000, done. 828 is the bid, so it's against you. The bid's over there, it's against you at 828. The bid's there, need to know. 828,000.
500.
At 500, 828 and a half. At 828,500. Think about how many $500 bids you've had, sir, and how they accumulate at 830, and that's what I was going to suggest, and there we are at 830,000. At 830,000 now. It was the quick retort at 830, and the bid's back there, the keys are back there at $830,000 the bid now. Need to know. Once at 830, done. Twice at 830, done and finished. Third, final call. $830,000 the bid and a half at 830 and a half. You had him on the ropes, he was saying no, 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 and then he came in with half at 830,000. Might be worth testing him with just one more bid at 830,500, but if you're going to do it, make it count, make it a good bid at 800. I won't, sir, at 830,500, we're definitely done. Thank you very much for your spirited bidding here today. $830,000 500, the bid's there, the keys are there, we sell. Once at 830 and a half, all done. Twice at 830,500, done and finished. Third, 831 at 831,000. At 831,000, and we're back there now at 831. At 831,000 now. At 831,000, fairly been offered, sir. Are we definitely done?
You're done.
We're done. Thank you very much for your bidding here today. At 831,000, once, twice, third, final call, 831 and a half now, 831 and a half at 831,000. I got to three quite quickly, but he was quicker. At 831,500, the bid's there. At 831 and a half. At 831,500, fairly been offered now. At 831 and a half now, bid's there, keys are there. We sell. Once at 831 and a half, all done. Twice, 831,500, done and finished. Third, 832 at 832, at 832,000, at 832,000, back there now. Sir, are we done now at 832? We're definitely done?
You're done.
Definitely. Thank you very much for your spirited bidding here today at 832,000. Once, twice, third, final call, 832 the bid, all done, all finished, all silent and out at 832. We're definitely done. At 32 and a half, at 832,500, at 832,500, how about 33 now? At 832 and a half will take me to 35. Think that might get the job done for you. 832 and a half, and the bid's there. At 832,000, at 500, 833. At 833,000 now. At 833,000, the bid's back there, so at 833. Are you out this time? $833,000 the bid.
No.
Once, twice, third, final call, 833 the bid. Bid's there, keys are there. Sir, look me in the eye, tell me you're in or give me a bid. Tell me you're out or give me a bid. Yes or no?
Give me one.
I need to know, sir, at 833,000. Fairly been offered, bid's there, keys are there. Need to know, 833 the bid. Once, twice, third, final call, 833,500, 833, done, finished, silent out. Definitely done. 833 the bid. At 833,000, we are selling. Selling. At 500, 833 and a half. 833. I got to 2 sellings that time. We're inching ever closer every bid at 833 and a half. Give me a quick bid in response. Put the pressure straight back onto the competition at 834. At 834,000. At 834,000 now, and the bid's back there now at 834. At 834,000, fairly been offered. First call at 834, all done. Twice at 834,000, done and finished. Third, final call, 834 the bid, done, finished, silent out. We're out here, we're definitely out here. 834,000. So last chance, yes or no, in or out?
1,000.
At 1,835. At 835,000. At 835,000, he's up the ante at 835. At 835,000, the bid's back there now at 835. Has he done enough? Are you absolutely sure? At 835,000, first call, second call, third, final call, 835 the bid, all done, all finished, all silent out at 835. One last chance, we're definitely done.
We're done.
I have your absolute best here today. Thank you very much for your spirited bidding here today. Wish you the best of luck next time we meet at 835,000. Once, twice, third, final call 835. All done, all finished, all silent out. I'm not taking 250, it's got to be half. 835,000. We are selling at 500, 835 and a half. At 835,500. At 835 and a half, and the bid's there at 835,500 now. At 835 and a half. At 835,500, fairly been offered now at 835,500 the bid. At 835 and a half, this is your last chance, sir. I need to know at 835 and a half. First call, second call, third, final call, 835 and a half. Done, finished, silent out. Are we definitely done? Thank you very much for your bidding here today. We are selling, selling, selling. So, congratulations and well bid. Please join me congratulating our purchasers and our vendors here today. You've just witnessed another successful Harcourts, Rata & Co auction. Have a great weekend. See you again soon. Thank you. Congratulations. 835 and a half, yeah. Congratulations. Well done.